Come with me if you want to live.
Alright, so Android 16, right from the get-go, let me tell you that this is one of the most underrated figures in the line. Why, you ask? He's just Dragon Ball Z's version of Arnold in a green shell. Hey, you know what? With that logic, we could ask why they bothered to make a Yamcha figure. I mean, he's just Dragon Ball Z's version of an epic fail, right? Seriously though, number 16 is underrated because he features a whole new sculpt. He was the second largest bulky character we got in the line, and there's hardly anything wrong with his details. And yo, he can actually stand up without much trouble at all, which is, sad to say, not the case for all Figuarts. Okay, so we're looking at an android, right? Completely synthetic according to Cell, so let's run a diagnostic of him from a systematic approach. Let's go from toe to head. Alright, so the first thing you probably notice about the figure right off the bat is the color. Yes, he is a slightly different green from the color green in the anime, but hey, with 16, it's close enough, man. Now, he also features this cool, very stylish matte black, which I think serves the figure pretty damn well if I do say so myself. I just think it adds a whole nother dimension of texture to the figure. So the sculpt work on the boot is pretty fantastic. I mean, not much to complain about there. It's like if you took Vegeta's boot and you ordered a size 16. There's also a touch of shading in the creases and crinkles of the boots, which is something you kind of miss, sad to say, with the 2.0s. As of lately, they don't seem to be showing as much color shading. So onto the legs, like I said, the matte black is pretty amazing and really brings an element of realism and badassery to this figure. And look at that definition in the musculature. Bruh, I mean, this is a male figure and they took time to sculpt the guy's glutes more than 18s. I'm just saying. So upwards from here, the rest of the figure gets pretty repetitive in terms of coloring, and that's just how 16 looks. The only thing I would have liked to see is a rougher texture to the green shell armor as it's depicted in the anime. You know, some scuff and scratch marks here and there, but no biggie. And lastly, we have the head. One thing I'd like to point out here is how well the face is done. Very sharp, very accurate. As with the other androids, it's like Tamashii was seeing where they wanted to take a step back and kind of reassess how they wanted to produce head and face sculpts before launching the 2.0s. The Red Ribbon Army decal came out great. I mean, hey, throw in a little blue birdie to sit on his shoulder and you got yourself a masterpiece. 16 doesn't really offer anything new in terms of body articulation, but I'm pleased to say that he isn't hindered in any fashion either, other than by this big ass collar up here that won't let him look up fully, but hey, that's okay. I mean, one thing Tamashii did really well is that they made the side skirts as well as the crotch plate articulated, similar to how they did with Scout or Vegeta. And another thing I was pleasantly surprised with too is that the shoulder blade plates are articulated. Look at that. I mean, that's some clever stuff going on right there. If they didn't do this, I don't know how it would have worked. And hey, you know who else has shoulder blades like this? Final form cool. I want to see him, Tamashii. Now the last thing I wanted to mention was the wrists. I mean, look at them here. On first glance, you would think they just fit fleshly against the forearm, but actually they have a little bit of flexion and extension motion going on there, which is great. They're not too rigid and they're not loose so that they fall off right away, but they still give you some play. So 16 comes with a total of 4 different heads, and I guess you could say he's pretty square that way. The first head is nothing new, just a standard stern looking face. Now this next head is the smirking one, and I'm really happy they included this, as it would have been too easy to make a 16 just some sort of one-dimensional character and leave this head out. But they didn't, so great job, Tamashii. Alright, third up, we got the yelling face, which I really like, especially because of a certain pose we'll touch on in a second. And lastly, this head here, again, they totally didn't have to include this, but I'm so glad that they did. It's cool because technically you can use this head as an accessory for Cell and Gohan as well. Okay, so maybe 16 wasn't perfect, but we all knew that, right? And it shows here because other than a pair of open hands, he doesn't really come with any other accessory, unless you want to count one that's technically built in. Hell Flash, this is great, man. I mean, I thought maybe if they would allow this figure to do this pose, it would have to be like a separate shoulder piece or something, but nah, it's right up under the arm. But nope, all you gotta do is just pop this off and proceed to blow up. So, Android 16, did you pick him up? If you didn't, you really should try to. I mean, he's probably not as readily as available by this point, but you might still be able to find him floating around online for close to retail. Seriously, I wouldn't sleep on this guy. He's one of those figures you might just look back one day and be like, well, I managed to get 17 and 18, but I really should have gotten Android 16, especially if we see an imperfect cell come out. Alright guys, that's all I got for you on this one today. As always, I hope the best of your todays are the worst of your tomorrows. Peace.